On your Friday episode of Locked On Raptors, Immanuel Quickley gets the bag. Will anybody else get a bag from the Raptors this weekend? We'll get into all that coming up on today's show. Thanks for hanging.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Friday, June the 28th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 10 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on the Really Bad website at Woodley Sean. You can find the show on Instagram at Locked On Raptors, and of course, you can join us over on the Locked On Raptors Discord server. Great place to come hang out, talk ball. It's going to be wild in there this weekend with the transaction season very much in full swing. So come be part of the Discord and our listener family over there. Link in the description of the podcast. Free to join as always. Of course, you can find the show for free on your audio app of choice. Please follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend to support the show on the audio side of things. You can also go to YouTube and subscribe to the Locked On Raptors YouTube channel. Lots of new subs lately. Hi, new people. We love you. You're the best. If you haven't subscribed yet, please go do that. When you do it, also hit the notification button. You'll get a heads up via push notification every single time the show is about to premiere or go live. You can't beat that, baby. Actually, you can beat it with today's sponsor, which is GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase on tickets to the events of your choosing. Go to GameTime right now. Terms apply. All right, let's get to it on today's show. Whole lot to dig into as the free agent season is upon us. The draft is now in the rear view. The Raptors roster has 10,000 guards now. We got to sort out what they're going to do with that. We will get into the off-season shopping spree if there is one to be had, the Bruce Brown and Gary Trent Jr. of it all. But of course, we got to start with Immanuel Quickley, who reported this morning via Shams Charania, Adrian Wojnarowski, the whole crew. 5 years, $175 million to stay in Toronto for a very, very long time. 5 years. That's a while. And here to talk about that and the offseason as it looms is our pal Jamar Hines from Raptors Republic, the God of the Game recap. Jamar, the news, it's been fast and furious ever since about 3:30 yesterday with that trade with the Kings. It's wild stuff. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. Obviously, no game recaps. The Quickley news just dropped, half an hour ago? So that's good. I'm a fan of that contract, considering the contracts people are getting nowadays. So I think that's a solid contract. And yeah, this is one of the most exciting times of the year. I'm still getting used to that because I'm so used to the basketball being the most exciting time of the year. But like the offseason, the offseason is like the big show. So yeah.
The Boston Celtics sure did a really good job of making sure everyone wanted to move on from the finals as quickly as possible. Thanks, Boston. Yeah, let's get into it. Immanuel Quickley, again, 5 years, $175 million to stay with the Toronto Raptors. And you may say, "Ooh, that's a lot of cake. That's a lot of money. Can you really afford to go and do that?" Like, that's like, he's not maybe proven as a starter. He's only had half a season as a lead guard. We gotta, I think, start off today by squashing any notions that this is some kind of gross overpay by the Toronto Raptors. No, this is 2024. This is the new NBA where the salary cap is $141 million and it's going to rise 10% year over year, maybe in perpetuity. We'll see, but at least for the next handful of years. And the breakdown of what Immanuel Quickley is going to be making as part of the salary cap going forward here is just, it is beyond reasonable. I have it here from Anil Gonia, NBA, who's a great salary cap expert over on the Hell website. The first year of his deal is going to start around $30 million. It'll go up a couple million here and there until it's 39, just shy of 40 in the fifth year of the deal. In year one, it's 21.4% of the cap, which is well below a 25% max, which is what Scottie Barnes will be on when his contract starts a year from now. Beyond that, 21%, 20.5% when it's the third year of the deal. The cap by then will be at like $170 million, and it goes down to 19.9 and 19.3% what he's making 39, nearly $40 million in the fifth year of this deal, which is a year that I can't even comprehend. 28, 29, I guess it is. My God. Will we be playing organized sports by then? Who knows? But for me, I think, Jamar, this is a home run deal. I think it's going to age beautifully. And I think just any deal that gets signed this summer by the Raptors or any other team, by virtue of being signed this summer on the cliff just before, I guess not the cliff, at the base of the mountain before the cap goes up, all of these deals are going to age really well for the teams that sign them. The players themselves will probably be underpaid by the end. I would imagine that's why they had to go to $35 million to get the 5th year on this deal. Doesn't sound like there's a player option in there. The Masai special is dropped. That's wild. But this is the price you got to pay as the cap is going up. And in 3-4 years' time, we're going to look around at the best guards in the league making 50, 60, 70 million dollars at the low end of the high end guys. Like it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to make like $80 million on his next contract. This is just what the new NBA is. This is Jeremy Grant money, Jamar. Do you think Immanuel Quickley is worth Jeremy Grant money?
Yeah, 100%. And you have to, I remember the first time, one of the first times, like one of the first big cap spikes and people like went nuts. I remember the 2016 offseason, DeMar got re-signed that year, but it was the Mike Conley deal. It was like a 5-year, $150 million. Yeah. And people were like, oh my gosh, Mike Conley for $30 million a year. And now, like 8 years later, Quickley's contract is not that much more. And you're seeing the cap go up obviously, like you said, the cap is just going to keep rising and rising. Jaylen Brown has a $300 million contract. You're going to see guys with like $400 million contracts and stuff like that. So the number looks huge, especially when you compare it to some other sports. The number looks huge, but you have to like look at the overall big picture of the cap just keep going up and the TV revenue and all that type of stuff keep going up. So, you know, when you put it like that, and I like how you based it off the percentage of the cap year by year, and it's going to dip to under 20% of the cap in like 5 years from now. So I have zero problem with the deal. You're establishing your core, which is obviously important between that and the Scottie deal, which is what, 225, 220 if he doesn't make all NBA, and if he does, it's 270. So and then you have Barrett for a couple more years left on this contract.
3 more years. 3 more.
Exactly. So basically your top 3 guys are locked in. It's interesting to see if they keep the Jakob contract, because that one is basically just started as well. What they decide to do with that, but that one, I feel like that one's a relative team-friendly deal as well.
Totally, $20 million for Jakob Poeltl in this economy? That's nothing, man.
Exactly.
That's like mid-level money.
Exactly. And if you look at the 3 Raptors that recently left the team, Fred, OG, Pascal. Fred's making 40. OG's like 43 and Pascal's like 47 million a year. So basically this is the ballpark you have to look at. You can't just look at the numbers anymore and be like, oh my gosh, that's so huge. You have to realize that these contracts are just going to keep going up and up.
Totally. Keith Smith, another great NBA draft and sort of more cap follow noted. It is the 14th highest AAV for a point guard in the NBA today, let alone what it's going to get pushed down to over the course of the next many years. Yeah. Maybe Quickley is not the 14th best point guard in the NBA right now, but I am a big believer in Quickley. People who listen to this show know that, obviously. I've been pounding the drum for the Raptors to get him since June, and it's very exciting that he's on the team and now paid to be around for 5 years. To me, the thing, Jamar, is he adapted so quickly last year to, pardon the pun, get used to it for the next 5 years.
I was going to say, was that intended? But yeah, go on.
It's never intended, but always has to be commented upon because it just is too on the nose. But like, he adapted so fast to the job that is being the lead guard. And he did that within a positively garbage team context down the stretch, with rotating in and out pieces, core players not available, players missing time for personal tragedy, Quickley himself. And the way he adapted to that lead guard job, I am only optimistic about what he's going to do when actually playing real team basketball with real basketball players around him, a full season of pick and roll chemistry with Jakob Poeltl, massaging that chemistry with Scottie Barnes going forward. I just think there's so much upside possibility to this deal. The downside feels very low. He was like 21, 6 and 8 down the stretch, like in the last 15, 20 games, whatever it was after the injuries to Scottie Barnes and Jakob Poeltl. He's got the juice as a lead guard, man. Maybe he's not an all NBA level guard or anything like that, but at the money he's making, going to be totally worth it for the Raptors. And I think there's a real chance he's giving you max value. And, by year 2 or 3 of the deal, like I really think that's on the table for Immanuel Quickley, considering how fast the transition was taken up by him when he was asked to just go and lead the team as the lead guard. Very exciting stuff to me. Any quick parting thoughts here on Quickley? Any last sort of notes here that you're excited about with this deal before we move on to the rest the Raptors have to do this offseason? There's still a whole lot left on the table for them, but I want to give the Quickley thing its due because it's a really big deal.
Yeah, the only other thing I have to say is, like, just basically piggybacking on what you were saying about him just blossoming into the role despite not having the desired role players around him at the end of the season. This is a guy that only started a handful of games for the Knicks. Mostly he was their sixth man. So to transition into the role of a lead guard, I think he did that pretty good last year. Obviously, you want to see him and Scottie gel more to, like, they didn't get that much time together, but
sure,
now they're both going to be around for quite some time. So they're going to have every opportunity in the world to gel along with RJ and the other guys.
The core is locked in. We don't got to worry about pending UFAs. What a wonderful, wonderful thing that is.
Yeah. Totally different vibe from the last few years. Yeah, 100%.
No doubt. Certainty. You know who the team is going to be. You're not openly chastising your best player at the start of camp. It's all a whole new world. The Raptors are back, baby. They're drafting weird toolsy wings in the draft. It's fantastic. We'll come back on the other side and carry this excitement into a conversation about what comes next. Quickley's locked in. Barnes is locked in. Barrett's locked in. We know that's the core of the team. Will they make any other additions to the core of the team around those guys this weekend? And what happens with Bruce Brown and Gary Trent Jr.? We'll get into all that coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by our good friends over at GameTime, the single best place to buy tickets for the sporting events and concerts and theater and anything really that you can buy a ticket to all summer long. You got to check them out. It is the single best authorized ticket marketplace, and it is the authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. I love baseball games. I love going to Blue Jays games, even though they're kind of stinky. I also love taking little day trips. Maybe you drive down to Cleveland or Detroit if you're living in Southern Ontario. Maybe you're a listener from out west. You want to go to a game in Seattle. That stadium rules, as I'm sure people out west know and have visited. You can go buy your tickets for baseball all season long with GameTime. You get views from your seat. None of those pesky pillars in old stadiums that you got to sit behind. That almost happened to me at Wrigley Field once, sitting behind a gigantic pillar after driving many hours to Chicago to see the Blue Jays play. Not an issue with GameTime. They have all-in pricing. You get those seat views, of course, and the tickets get even more affordable the closer you get to events. You can save up to 60% by buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDINNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDINNBA for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Back at it here with Jamar Hines from Raptors Republic. Just a reminder, Locked On Sports Today 24/7 is your all-day streaming channel covering all the biggest stories in sports with the local experts of the Locked On Network doing it only the way they can. So go and support and check out Locked On Sports Today 24/7. Put it on all day and don't work. It's Friday. Give yourself a treat. Okay, let's continue on here, Jamar. Bruce Brown, Gary Trent Jr., they're the two big things now. The moves and shakes of Thursday and day 2 of the draft leave the Raptors, Jamar, with 10,000 guards on the roster. You've got Davion Mitchell added to the mix. You've got Jamal Shed. They, of course, took Jacoby Walter with the 19th overall pick as well. They've got Grady Dick for the long haul. They've got, of course, Immanuel Quickley for the long haul. The guard core feels pretty crowded. And of course, Bruce Brown and Gary Trent Jr., while Bruce Brown can do some weird forward big things at times, they're both guards as well. Do you think the moves of the last couple of days here, Jamar, have spelled the end of the Bruce Brown, Gary Trent Jr. eras in Toronto? Is it one of them who's going to stay? It feels like something's got to give. The roster doesn't seem very balanced at the moment. They haven't really addressed the wing thing, although we'll talk about this maybe a little bit later on. They did talk about Jonathon Mogbo as though he is a wing and not a big, which really interests me. And boy, oh boy, am I going to talk myself all the way to Jonathon Mogbo very, very quickly as someone who loves big forwardy combo type dudes who throw cool passes and play defense. I'm all in. But we'll talk about that and gush about Jonathon Mogbo in a little bit. Bruce and Gary, what is your read on the situation now? The Bruce Brown guarantee date is tomorrow. It is looming, and it has all sorts of ramifications for the cap and everything like that. We'll get into what the cap space options could be, but what's your read on the situation now? A final temperature check, if you will, on the Bruce Brown and Gary Trent Jr. of it all, Jamar.
I'll start with Gary. Well, first of all, I think both of them are going to be gone, but starting with Gary, it just feels like the pick of Jacoby Walter, also a 6'5" guy. I just feel the writing on the wall is for Gary to be gone. I mean, I don't even think he would command that much money, but it's just the fact that all these other guys are either new or locked in when you look at a guy like Quickley. And so it just feels like he's the odd man out. We've been wondering this for probably a whole year by now, because even last year he was one of the guys we were talking about in terms of expiring contracts and stuff like that. So it just feels like he's on his way out. I mean, his skill set can be replaced. Obviously, his defense left a lot to be desired. So it's not a situation where it's like, oh, Gary needs to be on this team. I could easily see him elsewhere. The Bruce Brown thing is kind of funny because on draft day, was it Hoop Goose? Shout out Hoop Goose. Where basically he's like, he tweeted, "This is the last day Bruce Brown's going to be on my team." And sometimes players see those type of tweets, so
they're online too. They're all terminally online. Yes.
So he quote tweeted that. He's like, "Yeah, you guys really don't want me, do you?" So he's kind of aware. He knows the deal. And obviously the Raptors have been kind of like fish in the market to see what they could get for Bruce Brown for a while. So I wouldn't expect him to be on the team either. I would expect them to get bigger on the wings and maybe another big to be picked up. You saw, obviously, I mean, and I've ranted about him ad nauseum, but obviously Jalen McDaniels, I'm surprised they got so much back for him, to be honest.
It was purely the Kings needed to shed a bunch of money to have the mid-level exception available to them, and they had to dump some stuff they didn't really want to do it. So
okay, but it's
second apron, baby. It's the new world.
Yeah, unfortunately, I hate the second apron, but as a
the new CBA sucks, by the way. It makes being a fan homework, and that stinks.
So I just feel they're gonna need to get bigger on the wings, and those two guys just feel like the odd people out. I can't really make a case for either guy to be on the team in the future. I don't have one.
Yeah, I kind of ran through the options on my draft recap episode yesterday, but just to sort of refresh where things sit. Basically, I think there's three ways this could go. One is and this is maybe the least likely avenue, but there still is the brief, tiny, faint, glimmering hope of a Bruce Brown trade. I don't know who that would be to. You have to find salaries that match and all of that. Two teams come to mind. And it'd be kind of different situations, different team build situations, and it would require the Raptors to also sweeten with some extra draft capital. Now it happens. They got that extra Blazers second rounder for next season in that Kings trade. They also have the extra Pacers pick down the line. If they wanted to go and make a slight upgrade move with Bruce Brown, I think they could do it. The guy who comes to mind for me, and I mentioned him before during the sort of lead up to this process, is Dillon Brooks. The Rockets seem to have 10 million basketball players on their roster. Maybe Dillon Brooks is not someone they view as sort of a long-term fixture there. He was sort of a stopgap. He would be a perfect wing defender on this team and a decent enough three-point shooter I think you could get by with. I wonder if you could offer up Bruce in a pick or two and see if you can get something done there. Bruce could obviously help the Rockets this season as well as they try to go win games. Maybe there's something there. And Cam Johnson's the other guy who comes to mind. It's hard to find other possible matches. Bruce Brown would just be sort of a guy who gives them cap relief in Brooklyn down the line, and Cam Johnson is a fine player who's maybe a little overpaid, who brings a lot of shooting and functional size to the table. Those are the kind of two guys I have in mind. If you do that, you could bring back Gary Trent Jr. as well, but that would also mean that you don't really have the full mid-level exception to work with because of the situation where They brought in the Vezenkov and Mitchell deals, and they're going to be right up against the apron if they try to. They won't have access to the full MLE without going over the apron. I guess is the sort of quick Cole's Notes way of saying what their situation is. The second one. Okay. Yeah. Are you having fun yet? Is it really
I'm
fun
happy
doing transactions yet?
Yeah, I'm happy to have you breaking down all the math because I'm just gonna be honest, I don't totally understand all the cap information. So yeah.
Look, I barely do either. I always send my cap queries to Cap Dad Daniel Hackett from Raptors HQ to make sure I'm not doing the math wrong. The second option is you just keep Bruce Brown. You pick up the option, you try to trade him in season, and instead of trading him for a player, you keep him around, and then you can either let Gary Trent Jr. walk, have the full mid-level to work with, or you go and you just bring back Gary Trent Jr. and say, we're not going to use the mid-level. Not the best option to me. The third option is you decline Bruce Brown, you renounce Gary Trent Jr., and have about $20-ish million. I think Daniel Hackett had it at about $21.7 million in cap space this year to go and offer someone a deal. You could do that a couple ways. You could split it between two guys, maybe a Najee Marshall and a Goga Batadze to give you a wing and a big, something along those lines. Jalen Smith's name comes to mind as well. And then there's also the sort of offer sheet route they could go. I want to get into that route in just 1 second here, specifically through the lens of a guy named Patrick Williams and where he could fit into the Raptors wing core. Talk about him. We'll talk about the wing situation for the Raptors, which feels like the most dire thing they have to address right now going into the offseason. We'll get to that coming up in just 1 second. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for with eBay Guaranteed Fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And rounding things out here with Jamar Hines from Raptors Republic. Raptors Republic. You got a tongue twister of a name with your website. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Zarar. Picking up the thread of the off-season shopping, if that's the way the Raptors go here. I'm sorry I kind of breezed through all of the boring cap minutia. I wanted to get to the fun stuff here in the back part of the show. Patrick Williams is the name who comes to mind for me. 6'7". He's 22 years old. He is a prospect who the Chicago Bulls have mismanaged. We've seen guys mismanaged by the Bulls find success elsewhere in the past. Shout out Larry Markkinen as one of the more recent examples. I am kind of troubled by how quickly I'm talking myself into just going the cap space route, declining Bruce and Gary and throwing some money at Patrick Williams and hoping you get the Bulls to balk at matching an offer sheet. What do you make of Patrick Williams? Is it insane to be talking myself into a guy who's basically been the same 10 points, 4 rebounds guy over the last 4 seasons in the NBA? I'm having a hard time with this one, but he does feel like the best option if you're going to go throw some money at a guy who would be on the timeline of the rest of this team to get in the door this summer.
I don't mind that idea at all, to be honest. I've heard that name kicked around quite a bit. Like I said in the last segment, I don't see the point of having Bruce and Gary around. I wouldn't mind taking a shot at Patrick Williams. He's shown some range. He's had seasons where he shot basically 40% from 3. He, like you said, the Bulls situation continues to be weird over the last few years. I don't quite understand anything that they're doing, but he's shown flashes of defensive ability, shooting ability, versatility. Another guy from Florida State, ironically, the number 4 pick before Scottie Barnes was the number 4 pick. I wouldn't mind taking a flyer. I think it's an area of need for the Raptors. I wouldn't mind it at all. So I actually think that's a pretty good idea, to be honest.
Yeah, the thing with Williams is he maybe is just a 10 points, 4 rebounds, shoots 40% on stationary threes guy. Maybe hasn't been the defender that he kind of has the tools to be. I kind of believe the Bulls ruin players a little bit.
Yeah, you feel like there's potential there. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. And the problem is with RFA, in order to convince a team to not match, more often than not, you kind of have to make a pretty prohibitive contract.
Right.
That said, we just talked about the rising cap environment. The Raptors can get to about 4 years and $93 million as an offer for Williams if they use the full extent of their cap space and start at that $21.7 million clip that we kind of outlined as their cap space number they can get to. 493 for Patrick Williams. Like, I think that probably ages reasonably. Yeah, go ahead.
No. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm like, at the base that, again, for like similar to the Quickley, at the base that kind of seems hefty, but you have to think of as it goes along. And obviously Patrick Williams has proved less than Quickley, but yeah, if you can knock a little bit off that, I don't mind it at all, to be honest.
And like the fit with him on the Raptors, he addresses, I think, their biggest need. I think they definitely need to get a third big in there just to soak up some minutes behind Jakob Poeltl and provide some injury insulation. As we saw without Poeltl last year, they were basically a rudderless boat stuck at sea. So, that's why I mentioned a guy like Goga Bitadze or Jalen Smith. That's probably more attainable if you go the route of either having your mid-level exception available or you split up cap space between a couple of guys. If you're burning all your cap space on Patrick Williams, you might not be able to go and bring in a guy like Smith. Maybe you can't get him on a minimum. Maybe you can. It's eye of the beholder probably with Jalen Smith a little bit, but and Goga Bitadze as well. It's just, if you're looking to add talent and sort of upside to this roster, Patrick Williams feels like the best bet. There are other RFA guys, notably like Isaac Okoro, but he also is a 6'5" guy who I just don't know if he brings the size you would necessarily want. And Williams, again, like at the position of wing, where right now their best hope is roll out Scottie and RJ as the 2-3 and hope they can defend. That feels dicey to me. It would be great if they did figure out how to kind of recapture the magic as perimeter defenders. I mean, it's not like Scottie's ever captured that magic. RJ did briefly early in his career with the Knicks, but Williams, I think, would give you another chance of having a true wing defender that you can throw on the best guy in other teams. Is he good at it? Who's to say? I think there's a lot of unknown with Patrick Williams, given the time he's missed and the situation he's played in. But I think as a sort of high upside use of your cap space, if you can get to it, I think it's like, let's put it this way. Would you rather Patrick Williams or Bruce Brown plus Gary Trent Jr.? I think I'd probably lean just Williams for positional diversity's sake.
Yeah, and obviously Bruce has a little bit of versatility when it comes to that, where he can essentially, you can kind of ask him to guard 1 through 4, 1 through 3.
But he's like 6'4", right?
But he's like 6'4", but he's done it. We've seen him. We've seen him like be the undersized defender on a lot of different players. So I've seen him do it, like especially when he's motivated to do so, whether it be in Brooklyn or in Denver. I've kind of seen it, so it's not like out of the realm of possibility for me. But it's just, for me, I just kind of wanted to see a core gel together this year, and it's just the elephant in the room where that Bruce is just not going to be here that much longer. It's just a matter of when, not if. So that's why I was just kind of in the boat of, just make this happen sooner rather than later. That was kind of my line of thinking.
Yeah, for sure. I think, I'm not as concerned about the elephant in the room stuff with Bruce as I was with, say, them openly maybe not wanting two of their 3 best players going into
that's a whole different level. That's a whole.
It's a bit level. Of a different. I don't think it would be quite the sort of cloud hanging over every season that was last year. But yeah, I think the point of just wanting to clear it up and get some clarity there is a good one. And I do think, just looking at the roster, man, it's so guard heavy right now. And there are a lot of bigs, but it's a lot of like sort of one-dimensional wings, bigs who, there's not a ton of like stylistic diversity, I think, within their big group. Fascinated to see if Jonathon Mogbo plays at all this coming season. It seems like, he's 22. He's got some skill in size. Like, he's a functional NBA athlete. Maybe he does get in there for minutes right away. They took him at 31 for a reason. And so maybe he slots in to get some small ball 5 minutes here and there. But I gotta tell you, man, if they fancy him a wing, let's wrap here. We've talked about the shopping. I think Patrick Williams is maybe the best outcome for the next few days here. And again, we'll see what the Bulls want. They've said they want to maybe start a full kind of restructuring, tear down, whatever it is. And maybe that involves just kind of cutting bait on Patrick Williams and not investing that money. It's worth a shot considering it's the Bulls, and the Bulls are kind of baffling. But beyond that, I think we should maybe wrap here with just some quick thoughts on the draft from yesterday. Any quick Davion Mitchell thoughts?
Really good defender. Obviously has that reputation, struggles as a shooter, but for a team that kind of gets killed on the point of attack especially last season, I have no problem with it. Obviously, I didn't expect them to get anything for Jalen McDaniels. So whatever you can get, I'm okay with. The Vezenkov, though, is he even gonna play here? I feel like he was gonna go back overseas. That's what I was hearing. So I'm not even.
Well, he was gonna go back because he didn't want to be on the Kings anymore.
Okay.
So I don't want to be here type of thing. There are Vezenkov and Darko Rajakovic seem to have a pre-existing relationship. He also shoots the hell out of the ball. I wouldn't be surprised if they give him a look off a bench in bench looks. I'm not sure here's the thing. This is my takeaway on the trade from yesterday is I don't know if the players actually really matter here. Right. I think it's just getting a couple of picks, frankly, and getting a look at Jamal Shed, who's probably the guy I'm most excited about among the three. Davion Mitchell, off night, great nickname, all of that. It seems to be, we got to dispel this notion as well. As much as we're dispelling the IQ is overpaid thing. Okay. We have to dispel the notion that Davion Mitchell is a point guard. He is not a point guard. He is not a backup point guard for this team. He is a undersized two guard who doesn't really shoot. And, in fairness, he shot 36% last year. Maybe that's a sign of, trending towards league average. Maybe this is the bet the Raptors are making. And his perimeter defense is very good, but he doesn't have point guard skills. He's not going to run offense for this team. And we got to sort of, I think, nip that one in the bud before we run away with that. Overall, though, I'm pretty excited about the moves of the last couple of days. It feels more sort of in line with the Raptors' philosophy that's worked in the past. It was reminded me of Raptors drafts of yore. It's quite a nice thing. One guy
we didn't even factor in like the depth chart is Abaji.
I've been saying it the last couple of podcasts, man. He has to play extremely well in camp and in the first couple months of the season. Otherwise, I think he's getting buried quick. It's a big stretch here for Ochai Agbaji. Big summer for him. Again, another one of those Raptors bets. They're making a lot of bets. Some of them presumably are going to pay off, one would think. You would hope that one of those bets that pays off is 175 over 5 for Immanuel Quickley. And we'll continue to examine the offseason stuff as it happens. We'll have more podcasts over the weekend, surely, as things happen. But Jamar, we'll leave it there. Do you have anything you want to promote for the good people out there?
Just follow me, JAMARBH on Twitter, JamarBH. I am going to update my wall here. If you're obviously people who have been watching for a while know I have the Vince, the Mark, Kyle Lowry thing. WNBA season is going on. I got this sweet jersey from Casey Bannerman, the Skylar Diggins Smith crossover. I love the Sonics back in the day. So I'm going to replace DeRozan because he's still my favorite Raptor, but I'm just joking, but the whole Kendrick thing is on the stage. You know what? I feel like he's anti-Toronto right now. So I feel like I got to replace that one. And then
Did you know that DeMar DeRozan was really upset about the trade to the Spurs?
He's still talking about that years later. So that'd probably be the one I take off. And then if I were interested in other WNBA jerseys, I'd probably go into Fisa Collier, Angel Wilson, Angel Reese, probably in that order. But other than that, that's what I got. So the next time you see me, it'll be Skylar Diggins instead of DeMar DeRozan. Gotta mix it up a little bit.
The next time you see me, I'm gonna have a Jonathon Mogbo jersey behind me. I'm pitching my flag. I think I might be doing it the same way I did with Terrence Ross and Immanuel Quickley. I think Mogbo is a guy for me, and so I'm in. It's like the Raptors knew I was crushed by the loss of Pascal Siakam and said, "Hey, Sean, we'll throw you a bone. This guy might be new Pascal Siakam, but thrice as thick. Have fun. I'm in." It's like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. met Pascal Siakam. having a great time, and I am very much looking forward to watching him in Summer League and all that good stuff. Looking forward to having you back on in due time as well, Jamar. We will wrap it there. Thank you so much for hanging out, and we will talk to all of you again, probably on Saturday or Sunday. We'll see what kind of news breaks between now and then, but you can follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend, all that good stuff. Always appreciated when you support the show, and we will leave it there. We'll talk to you again very, very soon. Thanks so much for hanging. Bye-bye. That was a loud miss.